The waters of the Trident still ran muddy with churned sand and spilled blood when dawn unfurled across the riverlands. Pale and cold as the breath of the stranger, mists clung to every broken bank and reed-laced shoal, veiling the wreckage left behind by the clash of two claimants whose fates had hung upon a single swing of steel. Now the mists smelled not merely of wetted earth, but of iron and crushed chainmail, of rent banners sagging in eddies that turned scarlet in the first slanting light. Rhaegar Targaryen sat astride a rain-dappled destrier on the southern bank, gaze fixed upon the strewn corpse of Robert Baratheon, half submerged where the current had borne him. The rebel's great warhammer lay crooked in a bed of stones, his antlered helm corkscrewed away by a single unfaltering cut. Rhaegar's cut, as neat as the white blossom crushed beneath a boot. No cheers sounded from the loyalist ranks, though the battle had been won. The quiet felt like reverence or dread. Across the scarred ground, armored knights of the Stormlands knelt in disbelief beside their slain lord. A score of Baratheon men, what few yet breathed, lowered their blades in slow surrender, while ravens flapped overhead, black quill shadows on pearl fog. Prince. Now Prince no longer, Rhaegar exhaled, tasting the rawness of his own lungs, the copper of battles long postponed, and finally met. He slid from his saddle and strode into the shallows. Water numbed his greaves, but he felt none of it. A hush fell over both armies as he bent, wrenched the hammer free, and set it at Robert's feet. Then, bareheaded, silver-fair hair streaked with sweat and clotted dirt, he pressed two fingers to the pulse that no longer thrummed beneath the man's thick beard. "Stormborn, storm ended," he murmured, not in triumph, but in something perilously close to pity. Robert's eyes, once a tempest, stared upward at a dawn they would never claim. Rhaegar closed them and rose, water sheeting from his armor in dull streams. He had dreamed of this moment, feared it, and now found within its hollow center neither joy nor righteous vindication, only the burden swelling across his shoulders like a mailed creel of stones. Behind him, Sir Arthur Dayne rode through the river, dawn already sheathed, his violet gaze searching. "Your Grace," he said, the words heavy with birth of a title never before spoken. He dismounted and lowered his head. "The field is ours. Lord John Connington's banners secure the northern ford. Lord Mallory sweeps up the rear of the rebels' van. None remain capable of challenging your claim. Dendarine." "My claim." Rhaegar tasted the phrase, but did not yet swallow it. 300 yards distant, the banners of the Lion, the Stag, and sundry lesser houses drooped like wilted flowers. Farther back, banners bearing the argent direwolf of House Stark stood taut in the morning wind. Some of those wolves had fought for Robert, others against. The war had made kin into hidden enemies and strangers into uneasy allies. Still, there among the Starks rode Eddard, Lord of Winterfell, cloak-soaked and grim eyes fixed upon Rhaegar. Beside him, her face half obscured by a hood, sat Lyanna. For 2 moons, she had been secreted beyond the walls of Harrenhal, under the Kingsguard's watchful protection, safe from assassins and from her own restless yearnings. Rhaegar had visited nightly, speaking of songs and prophecies, of a realm reborn in gentle spring. Yet not once had he promised her the crown. Crowns were forged of need, not love. Now need had come on a river of blood, and Westeros gazed at him through the eyes of every defeated lord and orphaned squire. He mounted again. "Have the maesters tend any who will accept their care," he told Dayne. "We begin to heal today, not tomorrow." A nod carried on the pale shimmer of dawn's pommel. Then Rhaegar clicked his reins and urged his stallion forward. The water parted, leaving dark ripples that trailed him like questions. Lyanna Stark waited upon the grassy terrace above the river, cloaked tattered from days of confinement and worry, her gray eyes wide with alarm at the carnage below. When Rhaegar reined before her, Ned spoke first, voice rough as whetstone. "The rebellion dies with Robert, yet only the gods can weigh the cost." His gaze flicked to the lonely shape sprawled in the river. "My sisters owed safe escort home. Our father," the word caught, for Rickard Stark still hung as a charcoal husk within the ruins of King's Landing Square, victim of mad Ares paranoia. Our father is gone. Our brother Brandon as well. She belongs now in Winterfell. Rhaegar dismounted. Lord Stark, he acknowledged. Your losses wound me also. My father's madness stains every deed henceforth. He paused. Yet I cannot yield Lyanna to the snows. She is integral to what must follow. Then so. Lyanna stepped forward, rain beating on the sable braid that spilled from her hood. Brother, the songs lied. I am no damsel seized against my will. Her hand found Rhaegar's, fingers cold yet fierce. By choice I rode south. Now choice bids me stay. Ned's jaw tightened. To wed him? To mend a realm? She answered, though her gaze upon Rhaegar shimmered with something older than realms. Ned looked at them as if they were strangers, as if a river now yawned between Winterfell's hearth and this dawn-drenched bank. Across the trampled meadow, the royal guard assembled. Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, taut and gaunt. Sir Oswell went, his surcoat spotted with water and enemy blood. Young Sir Barristan Selmy, whose courage had earned even rebels' cheers. They knelt together, rivers of mail glinting like cage bars. Your Grace, Hightower intoned. The Iron Throne awaits its rightful occupant. Dragonstone calls for its king. Rhaegar felt the weight of that iron specter. Saw again and thought the twisted spikes rising behind his father's emaciated frame, and the charred bones of Rickard Stark beneath. The throne will wait, he decided. First we ride on King's Landing, not as conquerors, but liberators. The realm must see Aerys's reign end by my hand, not by rumor. And my sister, Ned insisted. She rides with me, Rhaegar said gently. His eyes did not leave the northern lords. If she consents. He looked to Lyanna. For one breath her choice hung like a coin upon a fingertip. Then she nodded. Even so, the news flew ahead of them swifter than any raven. By the time the column of battered yet victorious knights crested the King's Road's final ridge, tyros and small folk rang cowbells and pans, crying, "Dragon's dawn!" while others watched in wary silence. 7 towers of the capital loomed upon the horizon, their stones still blackened by the wildfire Aerys had unleashed at the last siege. Blazes quenched only by rains that fell for 3 days. Smoke yet drifted from scorched districts, its acrid bite fouling morning breezes. Aerys II, king in name, and pyromancer in soul, had sealed himself inside Maegor's holdfast with the remnants of his court. The city gates, under command of Lord Varys and a half-starved garrison, swung outward when Rhaegar's host appeared. No battle was necessary. The small folk parted like tides as princely banners, now royal, advanced. They bore not only the 3-headed red dragon, but the direwolf of Stark, in solemn partnership. Lyanna rode beside Rhaegar in a cloak of smoky gray trimmed in black bear fur, her chin held high despite the mutterings that flitted like sparrows between crowds. "Stark girl," they whispered, "the robber prince's paramour. A wolf among dragons." Some spat. Some wept. Some laughed in wonder. Within the Red Keep, wildfire reek clung to the corridors. Burn marks marbled the walls, testimony to Aerys's last purge of dissent. When at last Rhaegar reached the vast doors of the throne room, Selmy heaved one aside on its warped hinge. 6 gold cloaks lay strewn across marble, throats cut. Atop the iron throne perched Aerys himself, skin drawn taut over bones like parchment over cages. His silver-gold beard hung in a filthy tangle, his eyes 2 shards of smoked glass. In his lap flickered a brazier filled with wildfire jars. Green flames lapped at the rusted swords under his feet. His grin split to show broken teeth. So, brave prince returns, crowned by rebellion's ash. Will you kneel, or burn as traitor? Rhaegar mounted the dais. His sword remained sheathed, yet something sharper than steel resonated in his voice. I come not as traitor, but as dutiful son compelled to act where my king has forsaken reason. In the sight of gods and men, I relieve you of crown and burden. Aerys cackled. Relieve? Relieve me? He raised a jar high. Spineless babe of prophecy. You dream of a dawn that cannot pierce this night. I have wildfire enough to birth 10 hells. His thumb flicked the jar's cork. Behind Rhaegar, Lyanna drew a breath that snagged in her throat. He felt it, though he did not turn. Father, he said, once you fed my song with harmony. Now you feed it with screams. Listen well, your reign ends here. He gestured. From shadows slid Jaime Lannister. Golden armor dented, green eyes clouded by what he had witnessed in weeks guarding a madman. Rhaegar's knights flanked him. Jaime's sword already dripped with red. Aerys saw betrayal coalesce and shrieked, hurling the jar toward the throne's base. Selmy darted forth, intercepting it with a shield. Green fire splattered harmlessly across the metal, spitting and whining. In that same heartbeat, Jaime stepped, blade a hiss, and opened the king's throat. Lifeblood sprayed the blackened swords, hissing where it struck lingering droplets of wildfire. The Mad King's laughter choked off into a wet gargle. He toppled, crown tumbling with a hollow clank. Silence roared. Jaime lowered his sword, and soldiers stared as though at a miracle achieved by blasphemy. Rhaegar inhaled a long, steadying breath. He knelt, closed his father's eyes. Let no man say he died unwept, he murmured. Then he turned. A hush engulfed the throne room as he faced Lyanna. His armor clinked softly with each step down the dais. The realm stands fractured, he said, speaking low for her ears alone, though all present hungrily listened. Ice and fire once warred, but war has ended. Will you, by love, by covenant, by hope, bind north to south, wolf to dragon? Lyanna's brow furrowed. She laid a hand upon the pommel of her small dagger, heirloom of her mother, as though reminding herself of Winterfell's harsh truths. And yet her eyes glimmered not with fear, but flaring resolve. Bind? She echoed. Yes, but chains of gold I will not wear. I must be free, and I must be heard. Winter speaks as loud as summer, your grace. Da. Rhaegar nodded, accepting the terms woven in her tone. Then stand with me. He extended his arm. Lyanna rested her gloved fingers upon it and stepped to the first stair. Those gathered sensed rite unfolding, some with awe, others with grudge-bitten apprehension. Ser Geralt's voice rang out. All kneel before Rhaegar of House Targaryen, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the realm. Iron and leather creaked as lords bent. Ned Stark's knees met stone, though his face revealed a storm of doubts. Jaime Lannister knelt too, eyes downcast. Rhaegar did not sit the throne. Instead, he guided Lyanna up the steps until both stood before that monstrous seat of fused blades. Rhaegar lifted the fallen crown. Blood mottled its inner rim. With deliberate care, he wiped it upon his sleeve, then set it upon Lyanna's dark hair. Gasps fluttered through the hall like startled birds. By crowning her before crowning himself, he forged symbolism too stark to miss. A wolf seated upon dragon's hoard, winter's daughter balancing summer's sun. And as Lyanna straightened under its weight, the swords behind her seemed less a threat than a mantle. Outside, bells tolled. Faltering at first, then louder as the city gleaned its meaning. Rhaegar spoke in a voice that carried beyond stone and smoke. Behold, Lyanna of House Stark. First of her name, Queen of Westeros. In unity, we begin anew. Pause did not erupt. Rather, a slow, quivering murmur rose, like the first timid chirps at dawn. But it grew, out in the streets, across the piers, under the soaring bridges of the capital, until bells were drowned beneath a living tide of voices. Some shouted praise, others suspicion. Yet the sound was one thing above all else: change. That night, the Red Keep blazed not with wildfire, but with 1,000 candles lit in vigil for the dead, and in cautious celebration for the living. Rhaegar had the king's body washed, anointed, and laid within the sept. He spoke solemn words of forgiveness over ashes not yet burned. Jaime observed from a distance, guilt and relief warring behind his eyes. Ned Stark lingered near Lyanna, speaking soft northern vowels that tasted of childhood. She reassured him with a touch, yet her gaze strayed always back to Rhaegar. Drawn as the moon toward its drowned twin upon an unquiet sea, feasts were offered yet few hungered after slaughter. Bread replaced roasted boar. Watered wine replaced arbor gold. Lords conferred in shadowed alcoves, darting glances at the unlikely queen whose stark austerity unsettled them as much as her quick, luminous smile. Word spread that Highgarden desired recompense for Mace Tyrell's losses. That the Reach demanded mercy for Lord Randall Tarley, whose spears had split dragon banners. Dorne, whose Prince Lewin Martell had fallen beside Rhaegar at the Fort of Ruby, sought vengeance upon the Reach for old wounds reopened at Summerhall years ago. The realm's fault lines glowed like veins of hot iron scarcely buried beneath polite murmurs. In a high tower chamber overlooking Blackwater Bay, Rhaegar removed battered plate, each piece thudding to the rush-strewn floor. Bruises blossomed violet across his ribs, relics of Robert's hammer. Lyanna entered without herald, slipping inside before the Kingsguard stationed outside could challenge her. She shut the door against the world of spies and rumor. Neither spoke at first. She crossed to him, tracing fingertips over the deep dent left in his breastplate. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Only when I breathe." He tried to jest, but the laughter came brittle. Robert fought like a god of war. I would honor him with burial befitting a king, though he never wore the crown. Lyanna's lips thinned. Stannis and Renly may see insult in that, as might the Stormlords who yet live. Honor tempers loyalty. He met her gaze. "As does justice. I must make peace with houses who bled for Robert. But my first oath is to you, and to the child you carry." Her breath caught, a small sound between wonder and fear. "You speak as though certain." His hand splayed across her abdomen, though no swell yet showed. The midwife at Harrenhal detected a subtle rhythm. A dragon's heart. She called it. Though likely wolf. His smile softened. "Our son, or daughter, will bind the prophecy I read in every dreaming fire." Lyanna's eyes shimmered. "Prophecy bound me to you, yet love keeps me." She cupped his cheek. "Know this, Rhaegar. I will be queen, but never a silent cipher. My voice will ring in council. Injustice wrought against north or south I will name without fear." "So it must be," he agreed. "I need truth near me, else illusions devour all." He kissed her knuckles. "Tomorrow we begin forging that council. I would seat Ned at my right, if he consents." "Ned shall. He will fight you on more than one front," she warned gently. "But he loves me. Convince him you love Westeros as fiercely." Outside, thunder grumbled distantly though the skies were clear. Rhaegar looked toward the balcony where torches guttered. "Storm's End must be addressed," he said, half to himself. "The castle stands under siege from our banners even now. Stannis holds it with dwindling stores. I would raise the siege, offer him pardon, and place among my council. There is iron in that man, and I shall need iron. And now, others will name it weakness," Lyanna said. "Then let them," he replied. "I will build not upon fear, but accord. My father ruled by terror and died consumed by it." She touched the scar on his collarbone. "Accord is forged of pain as often as love." He turned back to her, eyes the color of twilight on still water. "And so I ask, my queen, stand with me in every hall and battlefield of words. Let no ambition of mine outrun your counsel." Lyanna's answer was silence broken only by the soft clasp of her arms around him. They stood thus, while the candles guttered low. Two souls stitched together by war's ragged needle, uncertain of tomorrow, yet unyielding to the ghosts of yesterday. Below their tower the city whispered. Gold cloaks prowled alleys in uneasy patrols, smelling change like hounds scenting rain. In a dim wine sink near Flea Bottom, whisperers already argued whether a Stark queen meant freer winters or a red prison of dragons disguised by snow. In the guild halls of Alchemists' Row, pyromancers quivered, for their patron had fallen, and gold for wildfire might be called treason come morning. In Old Town, the Hightower's beacon shone upon tome scribes now rifled in haste. A Targaryen king wed a northern wolf. What omen in star-charted tapestries foretold this mingling of sigils? Ravens beat the sky, bearing news across mountains and seas. The Iron Islands tasted opportunity. The Vale wondered whom to mourn. Dorne weighed vengeance against allegiance, and beyond the wall giants warmed hidden fires, unaware yet of any shift in southern crowns. At dawn, Lyanna rode with Rhaegar along the city walls. Few small folk yet stirred. Hearth smoke drifted lazily. They halted where the battlements overlooked the rush, still swollen from recent rains. Below, dock workers loaded grain onto fishercraft bound upriver to war-torn hamlets. Rhaegar watched in thoughtful silence. "Do you see what I see?" he asked at length. Lyanna followed his gaze. "People feeding people? A kingdom stirring," he said. "Hungry, fearful, determined. Break faith with them, and we become our father's children." His jaw set grimly. "I cannot, must not, allow prophecy or pride to blind me. When dragons last awoke, the world burned. This time, the dragon must kneel as well, beside the wolf." "Menso." Lyanna smiled, wind teasing a curl across her cheek. "Then teach your dragon humility, my lord husband, and I will teach the wolf patience. Then together, we shall teach the seven kingdoms hope." He leaned close, voice low. "In 5 days, beneath Septon and Godswood, we will marry. Let doubters murmur. Deeds will overturn words. 5 days. A span in which lords must be courted, rebellions quelled in embryo, raven-wrought secrets sifted for peril. 5 days before a union that threatened to remake heraldry itself. Already Rhaegar's counselors debated sigil changes. The world had never seen a combined direwolf and dragon on royal arms. Painters in the street of silk sketched designs, dragon wings unfurled around a white wolf's head, or a wolf's body wreathed in fire. Each design met with equal dissent and acclaim. Yet while heralds argued, threats multiplied. In an antechamber beneath the Tower of the Hand, Varys the Spider unfolded parchments detailing plots within the Reach, and whispers of sellswords massing in the free cities, sponsored by Tywin Lannister, whose pride would not endure his son branded Kingslayer. Tywin moved now in shadows, gathering coin and allies to demand recompense. Or vengeance, for Jaime's deed. Rhaegar absorbed each spider-born thread, fingers steepled, Lyanna at his side. Invite Lord Tywin to the wedding, he decided. Offer him position as Master of Coin. Lyanna's eyebrows arched. Reward him? Bind him, Rhaegar corrected. Lannister gold can finance healing. Yet I will keep my dragon's eye trained upon him. Treachery thrives where grudges fester. Later, in the solar overlooking the Godswood pool, Ned Stark met with his sister alone. She pleaded her cause until words faltered. Ned listened, hands clasped behind his back, pacing beneath carved dragon beams. At last he halted, drew breath crisp as snowfall. "If this union proves a shield to innocence," he told her, "if your voice remains stout in his court, then I shall uphold you. But should songs turn sour, I will call the banners of Winterfell and drag you home." "Nerms." Lyanna hugged him, tears bright. "Then pray the song remains sweet, Ned, for I cannot leave him." Outside the solar, Rhaegar waited, armor exchanged for plain black tunic, crown yet unworn. Ned emerged. They faced one another, two men joined by love for the same woman and by the grief of fathers lost. Ned offered his hand. Rhaegar took it. Thus the first stones of a fragile bridge were laid. Yet beyond the walls, enemies gathered like thunderclouds. In the Stormlands, lords who had knelt to Robert now clamored for vengeance. Renly, the youngest Baratheon, only a boy of 9, was spirited from storms and by retainers sworn to keep alive the stab's flame. In the Vale, young Lord Robert Arryn's mother, Lysa, whispered poison to keep her sister Catelyn away from dragon-kissed politics. In Riverrun, Lord Hoster Tully mourned daughters' ruined betrothals, and weighed where to cast his lot, now that seeds of alliance had withered. Yet for one brief moment within the Red Keep, under lantern light tempered by color-shifting glass panes, Rhaegar and Lyanna danced. Music drifted from a single harp, its silver strings plucked by the man who had once sung of the last dragon at Harrenhal. Now he sang of Dawn's first promise. Lyanna's laughter rose to meet the notes, unsullied by fear. Candlelight painted dragonfire in her eyes, and Rhaegar felt, for a heartbeat longer than mortal measure, that prophecy at last breathed hope rather than doom. He knew the feeling would not last. War was ended only in the songs of minstrels. In truth, it sprawled, wounded, waiting to rise anew. But while they danced, the world paused. The past receded like a tide, and the future, whatever storms it brewed, began with the simple joining of hand to hand, step to step, breath to breath. From the battlements above, a single star cut through thinning clouds, its tail burning a soft crimson. Some would later claim it an omen, others a falling ember. Rhaegar glimpsed it and remembered another star he had once taken for sign of a dragon reborn. Yet this star seemed gentler, its glow more intimate, as though marking not a weapon's birth, but a hearth's rekindling. When the music ceased, Lyanna leaned into him, voice a whisper on his throat. "Promise me." She said, recalling words once spoken in a tower's shade. He understood without asking, and answered in a vow that bound not just man and woman, but realms of ice and fire. "Promise me." So he did, and as the candles guttered out, the bells of King's Landing tolled anew, heralding a wedding 5 days hence and a reign not yet begun, but already echoing beyond the river where a storm god lay slain, into the snows where wolves howled at unfamiliar moons, and across the dark salt sea where dragons' long sleep stirred in their stone-bound dreams. Ah, Kai. A hush blanketed the Red Keep in the days that followed, like fresh snow muffling all sound beneath a pale hush of possibility. Courtyards that once rang with the crash of spears now filled with measured murmurs, and the brush of quills, as clerks drafted pardons and summons in equal measure. Servants scurried between kitchens and armories, eyes widened by each fresh rumor. A Dornish envoy at the gate, a Lannister column rumored on the march, Tyrell wagons creaking up the Roserad, laden with barrels of summer wine to wash away a winter bride's chill. At dawn on the first day, Rhaegar convened his provisional council in the Tower of the Hand. Light angled through narrow slits, gilding the long oak table where Ned Stark sat opposite Lord Jon Connington, both men still wearing the half-healed marks of Ruby Ford. Ser Barristan Selmy stood behind Rhaegar's chair, silent sentinel, while Arthur Dayne leaned against a window embrasure, one heel tapping a martial cadence too quiet for all but the keenest ear. Grand Maester Pycelle arrived puffing, chain of office rattling like a midden cart, and settled with avid eyes that seemed younger in victory's shadow than in the long dusk of Aerius' reign. Rhaegar opened with the Riverlands, grain stores sacked by foragers, charred fields near Duskendale, where wildfire had licked across the plain weeks earlier. He would send wagons west from the Reach, requisitioned at crown expense, but escorted by loyal knights instead of tax collectors. Jon Connington raised a brow at the largesse. Ned simply nodded, brows knit, seeing in it a chance to feed tattered small folk who had shared his men's fires. When talk turned to Storm's End, the air sharpened. Stannis, Lord of Dragonstone, by birth and storms and by conquest, refused all envoys. His garrison survived on onion stew now, but still manned those colossal walls. Some urged allowing hunger to do its work. Others counseled mercy for the sake of peace. Lyanna, invited but choosing to stand rather than sit, spoke then. To starve Storm's End would starve the realm's honor. Show the Stormlords we punish no child for a father's rebellion, she said, voice like clear water over ice. Send a galley under truce. Bread first, terms after. Jon Connington bristled. Bread to traitors. Rhaegar lifted a quiet hand. Bread shames no soldier, he said. Yet starvation shames a king. Connington exhaled, contained, and the council bent to drafting. Word went out before sunset. 2 cogs laden with grain and onions would sail at dawn, their sails painted with the red dragon entwined about a gray direwolf. Outside council walls, Sybil Spicer, acting chatelaine, oversaw a frenzy of preparations for the wedding. Seamstresses stitched silks dyed the dark scarlet of dragonfire for Lyanna's train, but she dismissed them, choosing Winterfell gray trimmed in ghost-pale weasel fur. The dragon need not swallow the wolf whole, she told the baffled clothier, measuring yards of austere wool against her shoulders. The city's weavers muttered that such drab would doom omens, yet every needle in King's Landing still pricked to finish the northern gown in time. Across the yard, Rhaegar visited the rookery where ravens beat black wings against bars. He penned scroll after scroll, parchment swallowing the same refrain. Peace through unity, guest right to all who arrived unarmed. Lords of houses large and small received the summons. Attend the wedding of your king and queen, and lay grievances at the dragon's table, where judgment would wait with open ears. Sir Barristan watched Quill scratch, marveling that a man once captive to song could wield policy with such relentless purpose. When at last the prince-turned-king straightened, Barristan ventured, "Your Grace, few rulers have dared open court so widely in such brutal times." "Fear closes the heart," Rhaegar said, sealing the last scroll with red wax stamped by a howling wolf. "And we need hearts open if we are to bind what Robert's hammer shattered." The ravens leapt into a dawn pale as pewter coins, bearing missives to the Vale, the Westerlands, even Sunspear where Prince Doran nursed gout and quiet grudges. Some birds flew north of the Neck, to Carhold and Bear Island, and the lonely watchfires of Deepwood Moat. With every flap of wings, the day of union drew nearer, and with it, the reckoning each lord weighed in dark rooms. On the second day, Tywin Lannister's answer arrived not by raven, but by rider. A single red-cloaked man reined at the mud gate and demanded audience with the king. Granted passage, he knelt in the Tower of the Hand and handed Rhaegar a length of gold brocade bound with silken cords. Unrolled, the fabric revealed no words, only a strip shorn ragged at the end where the rest had been held back. Half a banner denied. The message, the writer claimed, was clear. Lord Tywin would attend when the crown proved itself worth the whole cloth, not a shred. Some at council called it an insult, bordering treason. Ned barked a short laugh and dubbed it lion's bluster. Rhaegar dismissed the rider with safe escort and sent a reply of his own. A length of direwolf gray wool, finer than any Lannister's silk, cut precisely in half, returned by the same messenger with no note at all. Days later, it was said, Tywin bellowed loud enough to rattle the hills of the Golden Tooth. That night, while Rhaegar studied ink-stained maps in his solar, Lyanna walked the Godswood. The southern weirwood wore no face. Aerys had felled the ancient heart tree years earlier to spite northern superstitions, yet the quiet of leaves in spring bud spoke to her all the same. She knelt by the pool where moonlight pooled like spilled milk, and in the mirrored calm she saw flickers. Ned's stern smile the day she bested Benjen at archery. Brandon's laugh echoing through Winterfell's yard. Her father's visage scorched in dragonfire. Molten pain she had never truly faced. Tears slipped into the water, rippling the ghostly reflection of a crown she was still learning to bear. A soft crunch behind drew her from reverie. Arthur Dayne approached in plain tunic, dawn sheathed on his back. "Your Grace," he said, but she waved formality away. They spoke of northern winters and Dornish sands, of sword forms and childhood games. At length Dayne confessed a worry. Every knight of the King's Guard had pledged to guard the king, and by extension the queen, yet never had they protected both when ice and fire wore separate flesh. "We were forged to serve dragons," he said, "but wolves do not fly." Lyanna answered that wolves also do not burn, and that gave Dayne pause enough to smile. He swore before unfaced trees that he would defend her as fiercely as any dragon's blood. When she thanked him, he bowed not to a queen but to a comrade unafraid to speak plain truth. Overhead, a raven passed silent, new order etched black across its wings. By the third dawn the first wagons of Reach grain clattered through the Lion Gate, banners of Rowan and Fossaway fluttering as pale green tongues. Small folk gathered, eyes gone round at the sight of food rolling in without tariffs or cudgels. Rhaegar himself rode out with Barristan and Connington to greet the column. He spoke high Valyrian greetings to the emissary, young Samwell Rowan, and accepted a token of saffron honey cakes destined for city orphans. The act did more than 1,000 declarations. Mothers cheered, Children scrambled after cartwheels, and Lantern Tavern's bard composed a new refrain before dusk. The dragon and the wolf, feed us all, feed us all, feed us all, feed us all. Yet in the same hour, far beneath the dragon pit, flames licked dying coals where two cloaked men met. One bore the sigil of a flayed man under his cloak, Roose Bolton's bastard son, traveling south under alias. The other wore no heraldry save a ring shaped like entwined roses. They spoke of opportunity and chaos, of blades dipped in manticore venom, of placing the blame on some dog or cupbearer when the queen fell ill. When the candles blew out, the plot had a price and a promise. Winterfell's quiet lord would lose his beloved sister and turn against the Targaryen cause once more, fracturing unity at the root. So gold changed hands, and the assassins dispersed into warrens, where even Varys whispers came slowly. Morning of the fourth day saw the first northern banner arrive, the Umber longship with snarling red giant. Great John Umber dismounted outside Maegor's holdfast, voice booming that he came to see the dragon who dared crown a wolf. Rhaegar met him in the yard, offered mulled ale, and debated the merits of tourneys versus boar hunts until both men's cheeks flushed. The Great John declared he would be first to toast the queen, but if the dragon ever wronged her, I'll eat your heart, Silver Prince. Rhaegar laughed and answered that song foretold hearts consumed often enough. Let it be by a friend's honor rather than an enemy's sword. While halls filled with newcomers, Ned guided Benjen Stark through shadowed corridors, pointing out arrow slits, murder holes, and the hidden route through Maegor's Folly that Rhaegar had mapped for him. Trust, little brother, Ned said, but keep watch. Benjen, still all elbows and bright wolfish grin, swore he would watch every cup that touched Lyanna's lips and every blade that approached her back. He did not know about the conspirators in the Undercity, but instinct set his hackles up all the same. In the Septa, Baelor perfumers scoured soot from marble saints, and Septa scrubbed the floor with lavender water until the air smelled of spring burial mounds. The High Septon arrived in palanquin, gout-stricken feet, cushioned on satin. He peered at the half-Targaryen, half-Stark banners, and fretted over precedent, for never had a northern child of the old gods wed beneath the crystal crown. Rhaegar proposed two ceremonies. First, a quiet vow in the Godswood at dawn, witnessed by Ned and Benjen and 3 white cloaks. Second, a public wedlock under the Seven's gaze before gathered lords. The High Septon bristled yet conceded when Pycelle hinted at a donation large enough to gild every altar in the city. Night before the wedding, torches flared in the street of silk where lords and sellswords mingled. In one shadowed alcove, the would-be assassin brushed elbows with bards, slipping a tiny vial into the inside hem of his tunic. Across the city, Benjen Stark leaned over a parapet with Gendry Waters, a black-haired smith's apprentice who had once shod Robert Stallion. They swapped stories of the slain rebel, forging a small bond over shared awe at the man's brute vigor and shared unease that something vital had died with him. Neither noticed the hooded figure listening from a stairwell before melting into the darkness. As moons waxed overhead, Lyanna stood upon her balcony, overlooking the rush. The wind off the river carried hints of salt and char, but also new notes. Baking bread, a musician's reed pipe, laughter. She wrapped her cloak tighter, mind replaying Ned's caution. Marriage to a dragon would paint a target on every Stark child's back. She whispered a prayer to nameless northern spirits. Keep my brothers safe, keep Winterfell standing, and keep my heart unclouded by crowns. A gentle rap drew her from thought. Rhaegar entered wearing soft black doublet, silver hair unbound. For a moment, they were only man and woman. Not king, not queen. He produced a small white flower, ghost rose from the Kingswood, petals luminous under moonlight. No ruby suits the wolf, he said. So wear this tomorrow if you will. She tucked it behind her ear, colorless as snow against dark hair. They spoke then of children, of a nursery that might overlook Blackwater Bay or Winterfell's Godswood. Why not both? Rhaegar mused. They would raise the babe with summers in south and winters in north, teaching sword forms and harp chords both. Lyanna laughed, imagining a child whose lullabies mixed Stark dirge with Valyrian hymn. Hours before dawn, bells tolled. Varys skittered into Ned Stark's chambers, silk slippers soundless. He produced a flimsy scrap found on a dead-cut purse near the Dragon Gate, name unconfirmed, but the scrap listed a dosage of manticore venom, and the words, "Dire Bride." Ned's blood chilled. Varys had no suspect, but he suggested doubling guard. Ned summoned Benjen and 6 wolf-sworn men, stationing them at every archway along Lyanna's path from Godswood to Septi. Yet fortune is a blade with 2 edges. While they guarded corridors above, the assassin crept below, guided by a turncloak serving girl whose brother languished in the dungeons for theft. Through forgotten tunnels they climbed, emerging behind the Sept's altar hours before ceremony. He smeared his dagger with venom and tucked it beneath stacked wine ewers prepared for the toast. Dawn broke pearl gray, rainless but cool. In the Godswood, Lyanna and Rhaegar met beneath transplanted weirwood sapling, its trunk thin yet vibrant with new red leaves like fresh shed dragon scales. Ned spoke the old words, voice husky with memories of a father burned and a brother strangled. Benjen handed Rhaegar a slender blade of castle-forged steel. King and queen each cut the other's palm. Clasped hands, blood mingling in quiet vow. He would honor the northern gods. She would honor the southern. The sapling's leaves rustled as though approving. An hour later, trumpets blared across the city. The grand procession wound from the Red Keep to the Sept of Baelor. Small folk hurled petals, white winter roses and red dragon's breath, until the cobbles ran in colors of dawn. Lyanna rode a gray palfrey, her gown of direwolf wool trailing like quiet mist. Rhaegar rode beside on a milk-white courser, harp-shaped crown glinting above unbraided hair. Whoa! Inside the Sept candles blazed on every sill, so heat shimmered above the polished marble. High Septon waited at the altar, flanked by 7 towering crystal statues. Lannisters had not yet arrived, but the reach filled one transept in riotous bloom. Dorne occupied another, eyes flinty beneath bright scarves. The Umbers roared a song the Sept had not heard since Andal conquests, and half the benches trembled. As vows commenced, the assassin shifted behind casks of arbor gold. At the line, with all I am, and all I may yet be. He slipped forward, dagger poised beneath folded sleeves. Eyes fixed on the queen framed by crystal light. 2 more steps and the blade would whisper across flesh before the realm could gasp. Benjen Stark saw movement first, a subtle shift of shadow where no priest should stand. He vaulted a pew. Arthur Dayne's hand flashed to dawn even as poisoned steel flashed toward Lyanna's ribs. The queen twisted, wolf quick. But cloth tore and skin split shallow. Venom dotted the wound like dew. Dayne's sword sheared the assassin's arm, blade and limb crashing to tiled floor. Blood geysered. The man shrieked. Benjen tackled him, smashing skull against stone until breath ceased. Lyanna clutched her side, pale yet steady. Maester Pycelle tottered forth, vial in hand. But it was the Dornish envoy, Sir Miles Toyne, who produced a small packet of pale sand. The leaf of the ghost hibiscus counters manticore sting, he said. Let it steep in wine. Pycelle bristled, yet Rhaegar nodded. And within moments, Lyanna drank bitter tonic. Color flooded back to her cheeks. The wound wept clear rather than black. Chaos dwindled to stunned silence. High Septon trembled, unsure whether to sanctify or abandon. Rhaegar's voice cut through. By the 7 and the old gods both, we finish what treachery cannot stop. He took Lyanna's hands. She smiled, lips blood-flecked but resolute. They completed vows amid thunderous applause. Bells pealed, louder for attempted murder thwarted than for wedding consummated. Fate had tested union and found it iron. Afterward in the feast hall, Greatjon Umber pounded ale mugs in salute, while Dornish minstrels struck up spirited sarabands. Yet, under the merriment, whispers crawled. Who hired the assassin? Some muttered Lannister, others Bolton. A few hissed Tyrell or even Connington, jealous of influence lost. Varys slipped from shadow to shadow, harvesting names like ripe figs. Rhaegar summoned Ned, Benjen, Dayne, Connington, and Selmy to a curtained alcove. First decree of our joint reign, he pronounced. The king's justice will seek the root, no matter the house it coils beneath. Until then no lord leaves the city. Ned agreed, though his gaze drifted to Lyanna laughing with Marguerite Tyrell, sister of Loras, future knight of renown. And a flicker of relief passed behind his stern features. At feast's height, a sudden hush fell. Tywin Lannister strode into the hall, crimson cloak sweeping dust motes, eyes sharp as freshly filed garnets. Beside him walked Cersei, golden hair sculpted in coils. Behind came Kevan and a dozen Lion Knights. The crowd parted like grain before the scythe. Rhaegar rose, meeting the old lion halfway. Tywin bent knee, though stiff as castle ramparts. "Your graces," he intoned, voice gravel rolled in honey. "House Lannister pledges loyalty to the crown. So long as crown keeps law." His gaze flicked to Jaime, white cloak immaculate despite not sitting the table. "And honors those who rid the realm of madness." Rhaegar inclined head. "We honor valor," he said aloud, and in private tones added, "as we will honor peace." Tywin presented a gift, a sword forged anew from 2 Valyrian blades taken at the Field of Fire centuries past, repounded at Casterly Rock's secret forge. Its ripples shone ebony red. "A king should carry a king's steel," Tywin said. Rhaegar accepted, naming it temperance before all. The hall exhaled. A dance of daggers disguised as courtesy had passed without blood. For now. Night deepened. Candles guttered. Guests staggered to chambers. Rhaegar and Lyanna slipped away beneath a canopy of wolf and dragon silk carried by Dane, Selmy, and Ned. In the solar adjoining the royal apartments, they dismissed attendants. Lyanna sank onto a bench, exhaustion cresting now that Venom's burn subsided. Rhaegar knelt, pressing lips to bandaged side. "Twice now I nearly lost you," he whispered. "A third time, I will not abide." She smoothed his hair, murmuring that life without risk births no change. They spoke of tomorrow's challenges. Bread for Stormlands, amnesty for Sellswords, a seat for Dorne carved into council, a place for Lannister wealth supervised by Stark scrutiny. Then they spoke no more, save in the wordless language of lovers completing a vow measured in heartbeats, rather than edicts. Outside, Varys moved like smoke through corridors, weaving silk-bound spiders toward the tunnel where the assassin had crept. He found the serving girl sobbing over her brother's manacled wrists, and coaxed from her a single name. Bolton? In the north, the flayed man planned more than one knife. As first light painted the bay lavender, bells tolled not for wedding but for sea sails. The grain ships returned from Storm's End unmolested. Holds emptied, Stannis had accepted bread but not surrender. With them came a letter penned in Stark script. "We speak when your royal host stands beneath my gate in peace." Rhaegar read and smiled. "He is iron," he said. "We shall shape him to steel." Lyanna joined him at the balcony. She still wore her bridal cloak, a direwolf sewn over dragon. Beneath them, the city stirred, uncertain but hopeful, drawing breath after breath against the weight of blood just spilled. She leaned against the new king and felt child stir. A flutter or perhaps dream, but enough. Below, markets reopened. Fishermen pushed skiffs onto the rush. In Fleabottom, a ragged boy balanced on barrel staves, shouting that even a wolf could love a dragon and not be eaten whole. Somewhere in the Crownlands a thundercloud formed, mute promise of late afternoon rain that would wash battle dust from banners and raise the smell of new earth. In the stillness between bells a raven beat northward, wings slicing sunrise. Beneath wax, seal its scroll, bore the twin sigils of wolf and dragon, calling lords to King's Landing in 1 month's time for a great council, to codify rights, to redress wrongs, to build a realm greater than some of swords. Some ravens would find willing perches, others would be loosed upon arrowheads. Yet the message flew inexorable, inked in the mingled blood of 2 ancient lines. Rhaegar set a hand over Lyanna's against his heart. "Today we begin," he said. She answered with a smile fierce as northern winter and warm as Valyrian summer. From the high tower the realm looked vast and fragile, but it was theirs now. To guard, to mend, to steer toward dawn whether storms shattered masts or not. The wedding night lay behind. The long labor of peace stretched ahead. In that shared breath, Kingsroad travelers might later swear a red comet flared above the city, though maesters recorded no such sign. Yet for those who stood on those ramparts, the king reforged, the queen newly crowned, the child quickening between, there was unmistakable sense of something new kindled in Westeros, bright enough to blind assassins, bold enough to blind assassins, bold enough to unsettle old lions and proud stags, sharp enough to cut through the dark that waited beyond each fragile horizon. And how the city of King's Landing breathed with uneasy calm in the fortnight after the wedding, like a patient stitched shut after some reckless surgeon's work, the bleeding stanched but infection still prowling beneath the skin. Summer's first true heat settled over the red roofs. Flies droned in the charred shells of houses wildfire had taken months earlier. And from the dark chapel vaults where Arius bones awaited transport to Dragonstone, the odor of ancient pyres threaded the palace corridors with melancholy spice. The new king and queen rose each dawn to a litany of petitions that overflowed the audience hall. Parchment waves lapping at Rhaegar's high boots and Lyanna's courting patience. One morning, a delegation of bakers pleaded for grain at fair prices. By afternoon, the same floorboards thudded beneath the weight of smiths, who blamed tax delays for iron shortages. Some supplicants bowed to both monarchs, others only to the dragon or the wolf, and more than once Ned Stark's stern gaze pinned a sniffing reachman who dared let his eyes linger on the queen's bandaged flank. Rhaegar pointed Ned Lord Hand before the fortnight's end, an honor Ned accepted with visible reluctance, as if the badge were wrought of ice about to melt down his wrist. "I will serve," he said, "so long as justice holds firmer than family." Rhaegar's answering smile cut weary. He understood too well what it meant when bloodlings gnashed at the bit of principle. To fill the small council, the king drew a wide net. Tywin Lannister, Master of Coin. Doran Martell, invited to assume a newly forged office. Master of Roads and Rivers, charged with rebuilding war-worn bridges and harbors. Samwell Rowan, Master of Grain. Maester Luwin summoned from Winterfell, at Lyanna's suggestion to replace the aging Pycelle as Grand Maester, once the conclave agreed. Barristan Selmy kept the white cloak of Lord Commander, while Arthur Dayne accepted the post of Lord Marshal, answerable only to King, Queen, and Council. John Connington retained his lordship of Griffin's Roost, yet bowed out of council when his opposition to Tywin threatened constant quarrel. Early sessions proved fractious. Tywin's gold could buy lumber to repair the docks, but he dripped iced disdain upon Dornish ambitions. Doran, racked by his gout, worked through proxies and papers, quietly coaxing trade concessions that Tyrell stewards called daylight robbery. Samwell Rowan, half their age and twice as ebullient, navigated between them with the same deftness his orchards coaxed peaches from stingy chalk soil. Ned's voice guided the melee toward decisions by dusk, but not always toward accord. Lyanna listened at first, lips pressed thin, learning the warp and weft of southern oratory. In the north, men spoke plain or not at all. Here words were blades sheathed in velvet. On the fourth council day, debate over a river toll stood deadlocked when she rose, gown of frost-gray linen whisper soft against stone. "A kingdom is a hearth," she said, startling the gathered lords with that northerly accent, brisk and unadorned. "You feed it or you freeze." She eyed Tywin, then Doran, and laid out a single copper toll on barges until next harvest, enough to line coffers without starving fisherfolk. The simplicity silenced them. Doran's brow lifted in amused respect. Tywin gave the faintest dip of chin. When Rhaegar adjourned, even Barristan admitted in private that the queen's tongue had cut cleaner than dawn itself. Far from gilded chambers, the Undercity festered. Flea Bottom thrummed with rumor. That the queen carried twins prophesied to ride storm and snow. That Rhaegar planned to arm northern thralls, turning Southron peasants to wolves in men's skins. That the Mad King's shade stalked the Red Keep, setting torches alight. Amid such murmur, the remnants of Robert's supporters met in wine sinks scented of vinegar and sweat. They drank to his memory with stolen ale and scraped coin into piles for vengeance. Most talk came to nothing. Yet in one candle-lit loft above a cobbler's shop, 6 men and 1 hard-faced woman shifted their coins toward a plan. Rescue Renly. Rally the Stormlands anew. Carve a rebellion of stags from dragonflesh. The woman, Willa Florent, cousin to the imprisoned Selyse, spoke with Stannis' terse precision. Bread buys no loyalty, she said, tapping a map of the Stormlands. The king starves himself of garrisons to feed villages. Strike the grain roads, sow hunger, you sow hate. She found ears keen enough to listen. A fortnight later, the first of many carts burned along the Roserad, crews speared or fled, wheat spilling like golden blood upon the dust. Word reached the council as summer thunder cracked above King's Landing. Tywin exploded. Rebels must be hanged, not fed. Doran counseled patience, lest the realm fracture anew. Lyanna clenched her jaw, for each smoldering cart meant empty bellies in the Riverlands she'd sworn to heal. Rhaegar dispatched Arthur Dayne with 300 picked horse to sweep the Roserad clean. Dayne went gladly. Steel itched in his hands after days of parchment. South of Bitterbridge, the King's Guard met burning wagons and a rabble of half-armed men who fled at the first sight of dawn's pale kiss. Yet Dayne found more than corpses. Beneath scorched wheat lay knotted cords of golden wool. Lannister cloaks shredded to disguise. He sent samples north by Raven, nothing else, and pressed on. Back in the capital, Ned confronted Tywin before a half-assembled council. Explain the cloaks. Tywin's eyes flickered. Molten gold, cooling to coin. Any fool may imitate crimson, he said. I will not answer for brigands pawning lion skins. He stalked from the chamber. The queen stared after him. Her knuckles whitened on the table's edge. That night, Rhaegar visited the rookery alone. Penned a letter in firm script. Sealed it with both dragon and wolf, and dispatched it by his swiftest raven to Casterly Rock. Its message was brief. Prove your innocence. Bring the true culprits bound in lion's chain, or stand accused before the realm. He knew Tywin might ignite rather than yield, but the time for velvet-sheathed rebukes had passed. Storm's End loomed next, the ancient drum-towered fortress still held by Stannis, unbowed, unbent. Bread had sated hunger but not pride. Rhaegar resolved to go in person, Lyanna at his side, to demand fealty and test this Iron Lord. Council balked. Taking the pregnant queen on campaign defied sense, but Lyanna herself spoke last. Leave me caged, and Stannis will think you fear rebellion. Let him see I fear nothing, not storm nor sea nor man. So it was agreed. A royal progress south. The first of the new reign. The procession set out beneath dawn, shrouded in mist. White cloaks rode before and behind, Barristan and Dayne flanking the royal pair. Ned marched at the vanguard with 200 northern men chosen for loyalty. Wolves among dragons, small folk whispered as the column passed. Behind rattled wagons. Grain for Storm's End again. Barrels of Dornish wine and chests of silver for repairs to any village caught between wars. Past Wendwater the land grew rough. Wind tearing salt from the narrow sea. Coastal hamlets watched the banners pass with wary hope. Here Robert's legend lay thick. Fishing shacks still bore antler racks nailed above doors, and children sprinted after the horses singing. Storm Lord's fury. When Lyanna offered them sweet pears, some accepted, some spat on the dust. She did not flinch either way. On the 5th morning, black walls of Storm's End rose from sea-tossed cliffs like some fossil of the world's first fortress. Rain swept the battlements, gulls wheeled, crying. Stannis' standard snapped, yellow-crowned stag on black alone. Renly had been smuggled to Highgarden weeks earlier. The drawbridge stayed raised until a single rider clattered across. Sir Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight. He bowed stiffly. Lord Stannis bids just the king, the queen, and Lord Hand within his walls, unarmed. Dayne objected, but Rhaegar agreed. Inside that dough-thick stone, torches burned smokeless, smelling of sea-drenched pine. Stannis waited in the round hall, jaw like planed granite. Blue eyes that weighed all and appraised none. You breached my siege, Rhaegar began, and held despite hunger. You now hold bread by our mercy. Swear fealty and keep your lands. Stannis' nostrils flared. Mercy. Robert fought you for a lie you wrought by stealing the Lady Lyanna. His gaze slid to her belly, subtle as a sword strike. Now you flaunt the fruit. Lyanna stepped forward. I was stolen by no one but my own will. Robert died misled by his own heart. Stannis' stare never wavered. My brother loved deeply if unwisely. I love law. Law says rebels hang. By that same law my brother's claim died with him. I would bend the knee, but law demands price. His eyes flicked to the lords. The traitor Lord Tyrell, who besieged this castle, must answer. I will see him stripped of Brightwater, his daughter's dowry, his pride. Rhaegar weighed. Mace Tyrell's reach spanned grain and gold. Strip him and the reach might rise. Yet leave Stannis wound unbound and iron might crack. Ned murmured, justice cuts or festers. Rhaegar faced Stannis. Lord Tyrell shall answer at great council 1 month hence. If guilt proves, lands may pass. If not, you must defer. Stannis studied the king's open palm, then knelt. I answer to council, he said. The hall exhaled. That night feast tables stood in Storm's End for the first time since siege broke. Simple fare, onion soup and tough mutton, but spiced by improbable peace. Stannis drank water, not wine. Yet when Davos toasted the queen's fortitude, the Lord of Storm's End did not dissent. Outside, lightning forked the sea, hymning the new accord. While the king parleyed, threats multiplied. In the far north Roose, Bolton read word of the assassin's failure, and penned curt command to his bastard at Moat Cailin. Find another snake. Bastard Ramsay smiled, told the steward's daughter to ready hot irons, and began breeding dogs for a hunt. In Old Town, the Citadel convened archmaesters to weigh Grand Maester Pycelle's tenure. Half argued he served 3 kings, and thus stability. Half that his bias toward the Reach stank like weevil bread. They quarreled until the raven from Rhaegar naming Maester Luwin arrived, signed by ruling king and queen both. Politics outweighed pedagogy. Pycelle would retire with honor to a manse outside Tumbleton. Luwin would ride south post haste. In Braavos, behind green glass windows of the Sea Lord's counting room, a sail captain named Saladhor Saan counted silver from Willa Florent, and agreed to ferry 200 Stormlanders, outlaws now, to the Stepstones, where black sails gathered. War's embers glowed where no dragon's eye reached. And in Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister received Rhaegar's raven beneath vaulted ceilings, echoing with the roar of subterranean seas. He read it twice, once lips pressed thin, once expressionless, then summoned Kevan and 30 riders. We ride to King's Landing, he said. Bring the cloaks, and the boy. Kevan's brow furrowed. Boy? Joffrey, Tywin clarified. It's time the court saw a true lion cub. Cersei protested. My son is but 3. Tywin's gaze cut her tongue short. Cubs learn to bear fangs early. Jaime watched, white cloak burning guilt across his shoulders. He asked leave to stay, to safeguard the rock. Tywin granted with a glance sharp enough to shave steel. So Kevan, Cersei, and little Joffrey rode east. Return to King's Landing proved more eventful than departure. Outside Hayford a scorched field of grain awaited. Another cart raid. Dane's outriders chased raiders but caught only smoke. Rhaegar ordered townsfolk free bread from royal supplies, and the column pressed on. 2 days north of Bronzegate an arrow whistled from dark spruce, thunking Ned's shield. Another hissed past Lyanna's palfrey. White cloaks closed ranks, cutting into tree line. They dragged out 3 gaunt men in muddy cloaks, hands raw, eyes fever bright. No sigils. Under questioning, they claimed hunger drove them. Their families starved when wagon burned. Rhaegar pardoned them, and posted double guard each night thereafter. Approaching the city, the royal procession met a surprising sight. A column of Lannister red, Tywin riding at its head, Cersei with child perched side saddle, Joffrey in nurse's arms. Tywin dismounted before the king's horse and produced a chest. Inside lay 6 severed heads, eyes sewn shut, mouths stuffed with golden wolfsbane. The men who wore my cloaks, he announced. Sir Flement Brax gave them coin for mischief, thinking to win favor with your foes. He hangs in the rock's yard. My son's blood is not stained. Rhaegar studied the grisly proof. Lyanna's stomach lurched though she held gaze steady. Ned inspected each face, recognized one from tavern reports. The gesture satisfied honor, if not trust. That night, Tywin supped with council. He pledged 20,000 gold dragons toward road repair. Doran raised a goblet in toasted thanks. Tywin drank but cast eyes toward Barristan, who alone among counselors never winced at the lion's spine. Something coiled between them unspoken. Each knew whose sword had ended Mad Eris. Later Rhaegar and Ned walked the ramparts. Tywin buys favor with gold and gore, Ned muttered. A lender who expects repayment. Rhaegar's breath ghosted in cooling night. Then we repay in vigilance. Early autumn crept upon the realm almost unnoticed, so sweltering were the days. Ravens burst wings across skies, bearing hundreds of replies. Lords great and petty would attend the great council. Some eager, some under duress. Even Balon Greyjoy sent terse acceptance, though Ironborn envoys whispered riding songs all the way. Preparations overtook the city. Timber scaffolds rose around the dragon pit for seating. Inns tripled prices. Smiths clanged day and night, forging ceremonial maces for door wardens. Lyanna oversaw a program distributing barley bread to slums, financed with Tyrell coin extracted by Samwell Rowan's deft negotiation. Margaery Tyrell arrived with her father, a slip of a girl who addressed the queen as "my northern star," and drifted after her like perfume. But under the hum lay dread. The city garrison had swollen with lordly retinues, tempers frayed at brothels, and more than one duel already stained cobbles. Ned and Barristan formed mixed patrols, northern spears paired with gold cloaks, to prevent banners clashing. Varys webbed informants from dock to septi. On the night of the harvest moon, 2 weeks before council, Ramsay Bolton's dogs bayed outside the city walls. Disguised as merchants, they entered at Lion Gate. Carts of cured hides reeking so foul, the inspectors waved them on. Inside lay crossbows and axes hidden beneath skins. Ramsay wore a tanner's smock, smile sly as wet leather. His orders were clear. Sow chaos. He purchased a stable on the Street of Flower, set dogs in stalls, fed them the flesh of beggars until their eyes gleamed murder. The morning of council dawned amber gold. Pennants fluttered on every turret. Sunflowers, krakens, wyverns, roses, rams, seahorses, crows, cranes, griffins, boars. Bells rang until pigeons fled the rooftops. Atop the dragon pit dais sat twin thrones hastily wrought. Iron for him, weirwood for her, bleached white and striated crimson like the heart of the north. Lords filed in along carpets of green and scarlet. Tywin in cloth of gold, face a mask. Mace Tyrell in billowing silks, sweating. Doran born in litter, eyes half closed. Edmure Tully fretting with scrolls. Balon Greyjoy smelling of salt. Walder Frey hobbling, surrounded by sons. Roose Bolton, pale and unreadable, flanked by bastard Ramsay, whose smile too wide drew frowns. The council's first day addressed crown debt. Tywin revealed ledgers. Eris had plundered reserves for wildfire caches. The realm owed the Iron Bank of Braavos near 2 million dragons. Gasps rippled. Samwell Rowan proposed a 5-year grain tithe. Balon sneered. Ironborn would not feed mainlanders. Doran countered with tolls on spice ships. Voices tangled until Lyanna rose. "Begin with us," she declared, placing a bundle of Stark silver on the table. Coin minted from Wolfland tin veins. Let the realm see the crown lead sacrifice. Her gesture cowed some, inspired more. Next day, justice took the floor. Stannis presented accusation. Lord Tyrell broke guest right at Ashford by attacking his siege camp. Mace puffed indignation. Witnesses called. Renly, absent. Others dead. Blood boiled. Before swords could leap, Doran's calm voice suggested compromise. Tyrell to pay reparations in ships and grain. Stannis to drop charges. Rhaegar added a final clause. Tyrell knights must garrison rebuilt villages in the Stormlands for a year, feeding people they once starved. Faced with approval murmurs, Mace accepted, though cheeks flamed. So it went. River Lords petitioned for levy funds. Ironborn demanded right to raid Summer Islands. Tully pressed for roads. Arrns for tariffs on Lannisport wine. Dorne sought marriage pact. Frey sought everything. Each dusk the king and queen withdrew drained. Yet each dawn they returned. Steel beneath velvet. On the 6th day, Ramsay struck. Just after the midday recess, dogs erupted from the Street of Flower. Foam-flecked beasts loosed into crowds queuing outside Dragon Pit. They tore flesh from calf and child alike, screaming scattered banners. At same moment, barrels of lamp oil ignited near the spice gate. Fire climbing warehouse timbers. Panic billowed. Gold cloaks battled flames. Dane and Selmy leapt from dais to mount, carving path through riot. Inside council chamber, Roose Bolton sprang up, calling for evacuation. Tywin called for barricades. Balon howled that this proved the capital rotten. Frey sons shrieked. Lyanna gripped rail, belly tight. Rhaegar signaled Barristan. Secure Queen to Maegors. Ned drew ice, that great northern sword, and ordered northern spears to seal exits. Chaos spiraled until a boy, Gendry Waters, fostered to the Smiths Guild, burst in shouting, "Dogs took the dock ward, the Queen's bread store burns." Lyanna pushed past Selmy. Rhaegar caught her wrist. "You cannot." But she shook free, eyes flint. Let them see their queen bleed beside them. She strode from Dragon Pit with Benjen and 20 wolves. White cloaks tore after. In flea-bottom smoke, choked alleys. Lyanna dismounted, tore off outer gown, turned cloak into bandage strips. She knelt beside an old woman mauled to bone, pressed cloth to stump. Small folk gaped, Queen's hands in blood. Men rallied to bucket lines, dousing fire. Wolves and gold cloaks slew or netted the dogs. Ramsay's curs died foaming. Arrows bristling. No one saw the bastards slip away. Cloak charred. Laugh rasping under helm. By dusk flames lay spent. Dead numbered 36, wounded thrice that. Lyanna stood soot-stained, hair singed, and small folk knelt around her in ragged ring, some weeping. She bade them rise, promised coin for rebuilding, grain for bellies. A crippled boy kissed her hand. An old septon called her, half a saint. The realm's hearts shifted with that image. Not a wolf-devouring dragon, but a queen shoulder-deep in ash. Back at Dragon Pit Council reconvened. Rhaegar's voice rang steel. Treacherous hands loosed hounds, lit lamps. We will find them. He demanded each lord contribute men to city patrols, under mixed commands, binding foes to shared purpose. Even Balon muttered assent. Roose Bolton offered northern scouts to track arsonists. Ned's eye narrowed. He knew the flayed man's game. Yet refusing seemed guilt. So Bolton men patrolled, and quietly blocked searches near the Street of Flower, letting Ramsay slip through shadow. Autumn bled toward winter's hint. The council ratified 20 edicts: grain charter, road levy, ship tax, guest right codex, new mint of dragon wolf coin, abolishment of trial by fire, Lyanna's urging, restrictions on wildfire stockpiles, appointment of court healers to small folk wards, creation of city watch tribunal to curb corruption, and more. Maester Luwin arrived, gray head bowing, chain shining. Pycelle shuffled away, beard quivering. Yet outside city walls, conspiracies spored. Willa Florent sailed from the stepstones with brazen plan. Land in Cape Wrath, rally Robert's bastards and stormlords. Ironborn longships prowled Shield Islands. In the west, a sellsword company named the Golden Company. Exiles once sworn for Blackfire claims. Heard rumor of Dragon Wolf Union and debated crossing. Only Dorne remained strangely placid. Doran's letters promising patience while spies hunted for fragments of the assassination plot among Reach lords. Within the Red Keep, a different battle brewed. Succession. Lyanna's belly curved now like dusk moon. Midwives whispered boy by carriage low, but prophecy-minded Rhaegar dreamed of Aegon, the Song, or Visenya, the Dawn. Ned, argued northern names. Brandon, Lyra. Tywin pressed Cersei's claim. Should old agreements stand, Joffrey might wed the Dragonwolf child. Lyanna laughed frostily. Ned scowled. Rhaegar sidestepped with talk of waiting until birth. When the city caught wind, betting pools opened. Boy or girl, red hair or silver, born in winter's first snow or under harvest moon. That moon passed. Winter winds began to creep. News from the Wall arrived. Lord Commander Corgyle dead of chill. Rangers seeing strange lights beyond the Frostfangs. Most dismissed it. But Rhaegar, dream-haunted, commissioned extra wagons of black steel spears for Eastwatch. Lyanna asked if ghosts truly strode the snows. He answered only, songs speak truth in riddles. More immediate ghosts stalked capital alleys, Bolton's hounds again. Now men in cloaks who slit throats of bread distributors then vanished. A sigil of flayed wolf daubed in blood appeared on a granary door. Ned rode there at dawn, stared until sun climbed pale. He ordered watch doubled, said nothing of suspicion but rode home summoning 200 more Northmen. Queen's progress healed more hearts than policies. She toured wards weekly, sometimes alone save Benjen. Once she found Gendry hammering nails into New Orphan barracks. She thanked him, gave him coin to apprentice under Master Smith Tobho Mott. Word spread. Queen favors merit. A mason repaired Dragon Pit's crumbled arch and had char with her after. A washerwoman whose son had legs set by royal healers started rumor the queen birthed kittens in her pocket to gift to poor children. Myths fluttered, loyalty rooted. But in Casterly Rock, Cersei fumed. Her son toddled among red banners while talk in court praised a wolf queen. She wrote to her cousin Lancel. Seduce the northern slip Margaery Tyrell. Ignite scandal to singe the queen. Lancel rode. Honey words dripping. Margaery giggled, but Tyrell spies watched and planned wedding nets of their own. Deep winter signaled itself in a gale that rattled shutters through the city and set Blackwater Bay white with foam. Rhaegar woke to a chill worse than stone, dream of towers crowned with ice. He rose. Found Lyanna on balcony staring north. Snowflakes, first of season, swirled down. She smiled. Feels like home, she said, voice wistful. Yet below, the streets of King's Landing did not welcome snow. Mud churned. Beggars shivered. Charcoal prices soared. She directed Tyrell coin to fuel depots. Small folk could collect firewood free for 2 months. Ned longed for Winterfell's silent snows. He wrote to Mage Mormont, requesting bearhide cloaks for city orphans. Promised gold from Crown. Rhaegar sanctioned. The orphans' feast on Midwinter Eve drew hundreds to the Dragon Pit, where Queen ladled hot stew. Tywin attended in fine furs, Joffrey at his side. The boy wrinkled nose at smells, but watched the Queen wide-eyed. Rhaegar played harp that night, soft notes drifting above hiss of snow on braziers. Lyanna joined, humming a northern lullaby. Small folk swayed, tears freezing on lashes. For a breath, realm's old wounds seemed to knit. Then dawn shattered. Greyjoy longships raided Fair Isle, burning fields, carrying off women. Balon sent Raven proclaiming, the old way returns under weak wolf-dragon rule. Tywin slammed council table. Strike now, Doran cautioned. War across narrow sea still lurked. Dragons must guard strength. Rhaegar agreed to dispatch a fleet led by Stannis. Storms and Lord eager to prove loyalty and salt. Tyrell ships would join. Council voted. Balon declared outlaw Dothiel. Ned volunteered Northmen for ground assault on Pike come spring. Rhaegar clasped his shoulder, grateful yet fearing for friend's burden. Lyanna lingered after council, voice low. Do not let Ironborn hooks drag our peace to ruin. He promised swift, decisive action. Ramsay Bolton resurfaced in chaos. Disguised as washboy, he tried slip poison into the Queen's tea. Benjen spotted the swapped cups, slammed boot into Ramsay's midriff, but the bastard slashed with hidden blade, nicking Benjen's thigh. Guards tackled him. Under torchlight, Ramsay laughed. Spat blood, named no master. Torture gleaned only jests about pink meat. Ned had ordered him caged until trial. Lyanna visited cell once. Stench near gagged her. She asked why. Ramsay smirked. Because flaying leaves prettier scars than love. She left frozen, hand on belly. Trial convened in Great Hall. Evidence laid bare. The bastard boasted. Rhaegar considered execution, but Lyanna spoke. This one relishes death. Let his own house suffer him. She turned to Roose Bolton. He came by your order or no, yet he bears your blood. Take him north. Hold him in Dreadfort until he values life. If such day comes, break him from within. Some muttered this leniency. Others admired severity. Roose bowed, mask smooth. Ramsay snarled, but chains dragged him away. Ned doubted wisdom yet respected sister's call. Late winter severed travel. Snows choked Kingsroad. Council recessed, though matters pressed. Tywin returned to Rock with Joffrey, leaving Cersei behind. Rumors of rift stirred. Doran left for Sunspear, promising fleet for Greyjoy War. Lords drifted home, wagons heavy with grants, hearts heavy with uncertain loyalties. In quiet that followed, Rhaegar and Lyanna found rare peace. They walked Godswood's bare branches, etched white by frost. Talked of choosing a name. They settled on Eddora for girl, Aemon for boy. Harp melodies echoed nights. Soothing unborn. Barristan trained squires in yard. Dane wrote treatise on swordcraft. Samwell Rowan planted citrus in palace garden to prove even winter might yield fruit. Yet distant drums rolled. Golden Company signed pact with sell sails to cross stepstones come thaw. Willa Florent allied with Salador Sands. Princes in Qarth whispered of dragons stirring. Not in Westeros, but in Far East. And beyond the wall lights flickered blue over snowscape, and a horn of ice sounded thrice. Fishmonger's square bloomed with crocuses when spring at last cracked winter's shell. Lyanna's time neared. Midwives nested chambers with linens. Rhaegar banned council intrigue from birthing wing, though Tywin's raven arrived same morn insisting on Rock midwife present. Lyanna refused. No lions at my bed. April storms battered bay. One midnight thunder pealed, and Lyanna cried out. Labor ceased. Maester Luwin and midwives labored hours as candles guttered. Dawn's first blush found Rhaegar white-knuckled, harp untouched. A wail split hush. Healthy lungs. A son, Luwin declared, placing babe in queen's arms. Silver dark fuzz on head. Eyes still stormy slate. Lyanna whispered, Aemon. Rhaegar cradled both, tears bright. Bells rang across city. Dragon wolf airborne. Crowds cheered. Bakers gave buns. Tyrells sent green roses, Dorne oranges. Even Tywin wine casked 30 years. Winterfell lit hearth bonfires. Ravens reported. Yet north of Neck a darker message rode. Roose Bolton's bastard had escaped, flaying guard, vanishing into snow. Ned sighed, knowing ghosts never rest. Rhaegar named Benjen Lord Protector, until Queen's strength returned. He sent ravens of birth to every corner, some replies warm, others cold, but one came iron-bitten. Balon Greyjoy declared the babe, sea spawn to drown. War horns readied. Fleet under Stannis sailed at equinox, Tyrell sails beside. They crushed Ironborn at Shield Islands, then to Harlaw, torches of night bright as day. By midsummer Stannis battered Pike with catapults. Ned led northern spears, scaling Saltcliffe. In final assault on Pike's sea tower, Theon Greyjoy warred to Stannis under hostage terms, convinced father to yield lest house die. Balon bent knee to Rhaegar on charred quay, but his eyes promised knives. Wars cost weighed heavy, yet realm breathed. Pirates cut, raiders chained, ports reopened. Grain moved, roads mended. Queen resumed audiences with babe at breast, winning hearts anew. The Second Great Council convened harvest next year. Lords found city transformed. Docks rebuilt. Orphan barracks painted green. New coin in purses. Gold cloaks less prone to bribes. They saw Queen share bread with lowborn. King stroll unguarded to listen to blacksmith's woes. Some remained wary. but grudges dulled. At council, Lyanna proposed radical decree. Abolish the right of first night still practiced in corners of Westeros. Gasps. Walder Frey near choked. Ned supported, Tyrell too, even Tywin silently. Law passed. Small folk cheered. Rhaegar unveiled education edict. Septons and maesters to teach letters in every market town. Samwell Rowan offered grain stipend for teachers. Doran pledged copies of Dornish compendium. These seeds took root. Yet dark clouds flickered. Golden Company landed in Stepstones under new banner. A black dragon biting wolf and stag, claiming to restore true blood. Their leaders promised to sail west when storms ceased. Varys whispered of funding from Bravos bankers, disgruntled by Crown's slow repayment. Tywin recommended pre-emptive strike. Stannis sharpened swords. Doran suggested spies. Rhaegar deliberated. Then news from Wall again. Bodies found untouched by rot, eyes blue. Ravens fluttered south. Few believed. But Rhaegar dreamt of red sword in blue night. He ordered dragonglass mined at Dragonstone. Shipped north with provisions. Lyanna visited Forge, asked blacksmith Gendry to cast spears for the night's watch. Aemon turned 1 year as snows returned. North wind howled. At the celebration, torches flickered as ghost stories told. Lyanna held sun high. Crowd roared. Among them stood Ramsay in Tinker's rag, eyes alight. He slipped away before dawn. Message bound for Stepstones? Firewalks with Wolf. Strike soon. Years rolled like thunderclouds. Queen bore second child, girl named Lyra. Hair black with silver streak. The realm saw longest peace in memory, yet edges frayed. Tywin aged. Mace grew fatter. Doran sicker. Balon restless. But small folk ate. Roads thrived, market trade doubled. Word spread across narrow sea. The dragon wolf reign holds. Then the comet came. Blood-red streak, blazing summer sky. Rhaegar looked up. Harp lying silent. Lyanna joined. They shared silent fear. Song nearing crescendo. In Stepstones, Golden Company prepared fleet. North marched blue-eyed things. Far east dragon eggs cracked. And so the realm braced for new verse, the long night chased by fires unknown. Yet for a moment longer, King Rhaegar and Queen Lyanna stood upon Red Keep battlement. Wind in hair, children in arms, looking outward, not inward, bound by love, prophecy, and the unending promise of dawn over dark waters. Ah, Kai. The red comet smeared its fiery tail across the sky for 40 nights, bright enough to turn midnight alleys the color of fresh blood, and to paint gilt halos upon the crests of helms that paced the city walls. Maesters said it marked no more than dust and ice blazing in the upper sky. Septons claimed it heralded the Seven's wrath upon sinners. Smiths in the Street of Steel joked the gods had lit a forge in the heavens. Yet within the Red Keep, the comet was felt as a pulse, beating harder with each dusk, drumming behind every council debate and echoing in each dream that troubled the king. Rhaegar seldom slept more than 3 hours at a stretch now. When the harp chords ceased to calm him, he walked the silent passages with a lantern, touching a hand here to the cold iron sconces, there to a wall tapestry, as if reassuring himself the keep still stood. More than once servants woke to find their king in the kitchens, stoking flames beneath a pot of bone broth. He would carry himself to the night sentries on the battlements. The men accepted, confused, and afterward spoke of a monarch haunted more by compassion than fear. Lyanna watched him thin under the weight. She would press her palm to his cheek when he returned at dawn, whispering that morning always breaks the longest night, even for those who have forgotten the shape of sunrise. But outside the palace, the promises of dawn felt brittle. From the Stepstones came ravens inked with dread. The Golden Company had finished taking Bloodstone and Dark Den, stringing the corpses of Lysine garrison to sway like grim pennants along the beaches. Their Captain General, 1 Miles Blackheart Toyne, sent envoys to the free cities with proclamations pledging liberation of Westeros from a mongrel crown. They flew a banner unfamiliar in heraldry books. a three-headed dragon of jet, devouring a white direwolf, surmounted by a broken antler. No word of Baratheon remained but the antler tips, cracked and bleeding. Yet worse tidings rode the winter winds from the north. Cotter Pike's raven bore a parchment frozen stiff around the edges. Bodies without blood, ice-eyed and impervious to steel, had ambushed a ranging party half a league from the fist of the first men. Black brothers hacked them apart, but the pieces crawled until touched by fire. One survivor named Bannon lost an arm to frostbite on the ride back, and begged that the stump be burned. When they did, the flames burned blue for an hour. "Send fire that does not sleep," Pike wrote in crabbed hand. "Send men who do not flinch." Rhaegar gathered the small council. This time every seat filled save one, Doran's left vacant because the Prince of Dorne lay abed with a gout fit that prevented travel. Maester Luwine read the wall's message twice. Silence thickened between pillars until Stannis broke it. "The realm bleeds coin into the north and stepstones both. We must choose." Tywin's jaw flexed beneath trimmed beard, finding agreement for once with Storm's End. Braavos calls notes in 6 months. War on 2 fronts stars the treasury. Samwell Rowan countered that if the dead were truly rising north of the wall, no silver mattered beside life itself. Ned's voice, quiet but honed to one decisive edge, followed. "If the ice demons cross into the gift, my people freeze before any sellsword sets foot on Blackwater soil. The choice is made for us. We ride north." Lyanna's hand came to rest upon her husband's. She had bled hers white writing pleas to every northern lord to reinforce the watch. They had come, but too slow, too few. "We ride," she echoed Ned. "But the Golden Company cannot be ignored. A two-jawed wolf must bite both threats at once or lose its throat." Rhaegar listened, weighed, and at last gave the order that shaped the next turning of every wheel in Westeros. The realm would forge 2 armies, one of cold iron, one of sea steel. Stannis accepted high command of the southern host, 300 ships strong. Once Hightower and Redwyne's sails converged. Their task: break the stepstones before summer's end, scatter the sellswords, strangle their supply lines from Lys and Tyrosh. Stannis' gauntleted fist upon the map looked like a mailed crab pinning prey. "Give me the reach to strike and the leash to finish," he said. The council gave both. For the northern host, Rhaegar would ride himself. Arthur Dayne protested. The king could ill be spared when the comet of uncertainty still glared violence. But Rhaegar spoke one word that quashed dissent: prophecy. He did not expound. Only Lyanna truly knew how his dreams had grown darker, filled now with images of a red sword singing in the snow, and of a child, sometimes Aemon, sometimes Lyra, standing knee-deep in sunset-colored ash, while something vast and cold approached from the horizon. She did not argue against his going. Instead, she demanded to ride as well. The midwives warned her loins might tear carrying a spear so soon after birthing Lyra, but she only laughed. "My spear is my voice," she said. "No stitches can silence that." So swarms of ravens flew. Lords Manderly, Karstark, Glover, Serwyn, Reed, each pledged companies to join the king's march. From the Vale Lord Jon Arryn promised 500 knights and 2,000 foot, their spears tipped in fresh black dragonglass. Even the Freys offered bridge toll exemptions, as cheap a price as Lord Walder could manage without parting coin. While armies readied, Tywin retired to Casterly Rock to mint new gold stags bearing twin sigils. The realm would need paymasters more than kings. He left Cersei behind for seasoning, as he put it, which meant grooming her to watch the court in his absence. Cersei accepted the post as if it were a lover's kiss, though her heart soured each time crowds cheered the Northern Queen. She spent hours drilling Joffrey's lessons, telling him that wolves may howl loudest but lions eat last. The last night before the hosts parted, Rhaegar visited the Tower of the Hand where Ned packed letters bound for Winterfell. Moonlight penciled through the shutters, painting wolf shadows on stone. The king laid a hand on Ned's shoulder. "Once," he said, voice thin as harp string, "we met as rivals. Tomorrow we ride as brothers." Ned looked back, eyes gray and weary. "Brothers bound by duty," he corrected. Yet when Rhaegar offered his arm, Ned clasped it, and no more words were needed. At dawn the city walls thrummed beneath hoofbeats. The northern host flowed through the king's gate like a river of steel shot with veins of red and gray and white. Dragon banners, Deerwolf's sun spear volunteers from Dorne, come to repay ancient debts. Gold cloaks lined the route, helms glittering. Small folk wept or cheered, or threw root vegetables according to their fears. Lyanna rode Wind's song, cloak of snowy direwolf fur drifting behind. Benjen carried the king's standard, a three-headed dragon clasping a direwolf cub alive in each talon, new painted device that still unsettled heralds. Rhaegar wore no crown under his greethel, only a fillet of pale leather. "Crowns are forged valleys away," he said. "But duty sits in the saddle." Behind surged supply wagons stacked with barrels of obsidian daggers and arrowheads painstakingly chipped by masons, under Maester Luwin's tutelage. Farmer boys marched barefoot beside knights in rainbow plate. The frost did not spare feet or faith. Watching from a turret, little Aemon slapped pudgy hands on the rail each time a horn brayed. Cersei, beside the wet nurse, murmured that the babe looked more wolf than dragon. The nurse dared no reply. Where King's Road bent around the swift hills of Rosby, the host divided. 2,000 turned east under Sir Barristan to ride for Gulltown and take ship to Eastwatch. The rest pressed due north. Cold came quickly. By the time they crossed the neck, the swamp mists left armor-crusted white each dawn. Reeds cracked under wagons, attracting flocks of pale herons that followed as if they were omens wearing feathers. Rhaegar fell into trance on long rides, humming tunes nobody recognized. When the humming ceased, he would write verses on scraps of birch bark, always in the same repeating meter. Blade of dawn, dawn of song. Song of snow. Lyanna collected the scraps in a pouch, though she never looked at them. On the 23rd day from King's Landing, they reached Winterfell. The castle loomed beneath a sky, the dull silver of a tempered blade, breath from the hot springs steaming in the frigid air. Princes and princes in exile had passed its gates before, but never a Targaryen king. Rhaegar dismounted within the courtyard where banners snapped like brittle silk. Old Nan tottered forth with a platter of bread and salt. He knelt to take the ritual bite. Steam rose from the crust like a benediction. 2 nights they rested. Lyanna introduced her children to the godswood, pressing their small palms to the weirwood's face. In the hush, she spoke to her dead brothers, telling them she carried the north within her yet. Aemon burbled, and she swore the tree's mouth bent in a smile. Then the march resumed. Beyond the last river the world narrowed to wind and snow. Villages huddled like mice beneath drifts, doors open to offer what meager fare remained. Rutabaga soup, stringy venison. The king accepted all, and in return left sacks of hardy barley from southern stores. One widow called him the Singer King and gave him a broken flute. He accepted with greater solemnity than any jeweled chalice. Finally, the wall rose ahead, pale and monstrous, its shadows swallowing the setting sun. The ice face glittered crimson in comet light. At the Shadow Tower, Lord Commander Denys Mallister greeted them with voice trembling more from age than fear. Cotter Pike had sailed for Hardhome, missing 2 weeks and feared lost. Bowen Marsh bled from a wound that would not close, though Maester Aemon swore no infection. Through the tunnels Rhaegar entered, Lyanna and Ned and Benjen at his back, and with them 200 lords great and small, brought low by the scale of frozen ramparts that dwarfed any southern wall. Some wept silent tears. Rhaegar climbed the steps of the sentry cage and looked out over the haunted forest. All color bled from the world, save comet red and ice blue. He spoke softly. Here the song begins again. That night, he met Maester Aemon beneath a guttering brazier. The old Maester, blind but keen, traced Rhaegar's face with trembling fingertips like a sculptor studying marble. "The dragon has come to the wall at last," he said, breath wheezing. "I dreamed it long ago." They spoke of prophecy until dawn, of the prince that was promised, of salt and smoke, of a stone beast breathing shadow. Rhaegar listened, then slid his harp from its case and played a lullaby so gentle frost melted on the strings. Aemon wept, but war allowed no lingering. Scouts reported ravagers moving through the frost fangs, corpses armored in rime, led by pale riders upon skeletal elk. Fires burned behind them but cast no warmth. Rhaegar ordered the host to break into 3 columns, Ned to guard the Shadow Tower approach, Benjen to ride through the western valleys and cut whites from behind, while he led the main thrust toward the Fist of the First Men. Lyanna, he commanded to remain at Castle Black, with Maester Luwin and the babes. She refused. Voices rose until the children woke, crying. At last compromise. Lyanna would ride, but command the rear guard with Arthur Dayne, a half-day south of whatever battle loomed. She agreed, though her eyes stung as if from smoke. The march north of the wall was like treading the spine of a sleeping beast. Snow swallowed noise. Only the crunch of boots and the whicker of horses spoke. Dragonglass spearheads gleamed wine-dark under torchlight. Some men muttered prayers to the Seven, others to nameless old gods. Rhaegar rode silent, harp strapped across his back like a second sword. They found the first bodies 3 leagues from the Fist. 7 rangers crucified upside down, arms snapped, hearts missing. The corpses did not rot. Eyes were black pits. Ned ordered pyres. The flames sputtered blue and green before settling. No scent of burning flesh rose. Even hardened Karstarks retched. Rhaegar knelt by the ashes, drew dagger across his palm, and let blood drip onto smoldering wood. "Fire for the living, blood for the dead," he whispered. No winds answered. At dusk, the scouts returned galloping. The white column had turned east, perhaps sensing warm bodies. Under aurora glow, they advanced toward a frozen lake shaped like a wolf's head. Rhaegar made camp at the southern shore, positioning ranks in crescent about the ice. Ned paced the lines, lending calm. Benjen's outriders siphoned in from west, their faces mask-like with frost. They had seen an army not of hundreds but thousands, silent as shadow. Through the night, they waited. Stars burned, comet bled overhead. Then came the sound, first like cracking branches, then a roar of glass shattering. From tree line emerged the dead, some naked, some in skins, some in rusted mail. Snow lay upon their shoulders like crown dust. Their eyes glowed eggshell blue. Behind them glided the others, tall lank figures armored in plates thin as eye sleeves, blades of pale crystal. Breath misted around them, though they did not breathe. Rhaegar drew Lightbringer, the sword forged on Dragonstone in secret by master smiths who wedded Valyrian steel to a core of dragonglass shards. He raised the blade. The runes along its fuller, pulsed ember red. "For dawn," he shouted, and horns answered. Arrows laced with obsidian whistled into the first ranks of whites, pinning them to the snow where they writhed until flames finished the job. Catapults spitting oil-soaked bundles ignited, casting sheets of fire that hissed along the ice. Ned's northern spears formed shield walls 2 row deep, defenders hewing with bronze and blackened steel. Wherever another's sword swept, normal metal snapped like brittle grass. But obsidian shattered it into mist. The Brothers of the Knights, Watch, fought with a fury born of years, doubted by Southron cousins. The battle surged. Benjen's flank hammered into the dead's rear, cutting down swaths before the corpses even sensed heat. Rhaegar advanced at center, harp gone, cloak flaring behind. Lightbringer met an other's crystal blade. Sparks of snow dust ripped the night. He parried once, twice, then plunged forward, tip puncturing armor. The other dissolved into shards, vanishing like a snowflake on forged coal. Men cheered. The sound died quickly as 2 more rose in its place. Hours blurred. Dayne's rear guard arrived before moonset, bringing Lyanna at the gallop. She saw smoke pillars and sprinted toward the wounded line. A riderless horse slammed past, torso of its mount strapped limply. She dismounted beside a ring of Karstarks barely holding. Her Valkyrie wolf's head cloak was soon rimed with snow and blackened ash as she swung a dragonglass-edged axe borrowed from a watch ranger. Firelight flickered on the strand of silver hair that had escaped her plait. She moved like a white flame among blue-eyed foes. At dawn's cusp, the lake ice exploded in a dozen points. From below, emerged creatures that had once been giants. Their flesh had gone translucent, bones visible like moonlit branches. Rhaegar ordered scorpions wheeled into range. The great bolts tipped with dragon glass hammered through ribs. One giant flailed, collapsed upon its kin, cracking more ice. Steam belched where their ichor touched the frigid water, releasing a stench of rotten lilies. The sun broke at last, pallid, feeble. The others retreated into the forest, the whites collapsing wordlessly. Only then did the singers count cost. 700 men dead, another 500 wounded. But the wall still stood behind them, inviolate. And upon the snow glittered the shattered helms of 5 others, first ever slain in living memory. Maester Luwin would later write that day into chronicles as the Battle of the Wolf's Mirror. As pyres burned on the lake shore, Rhaegar found Lyanna binding a cut on Benjen's shoulder. She turned, eyes wide with tears that refused to fall. "We held," she breathed. Rhaegar nodded, but his gaze fixed upon the eastern sky where the comet now faded, swallowed by daylight. "Held," he echoed. "But not ended." He summoned Ned, Benjen, and Lord Commander Mallister. Strategy took shape. Fortify the Fist as advanced line. Build beacon towers along Milkwater. Send ravens to Winterfell, for every hearth to forge dragonglass arrowheads. The watch would swell with second sons pardoned by crown, clothed and armed at royal expense. Ned agreed to supervise. Rhaegar vowed to remain another fortnight, but word arrived from Castle Black. Maester Aemon lay dying, and Aemon Targaryen the Younger had fallen ill with fever that left him glassy-eyed. Lyanna rode south that hour. Rhaegar stayed. At Castle Black, she sat by the babe's cradle, cool cloth at hand, singing a lullaby her mother once crooned when snows howled outside Winterfell. The child's skin flushed red as the comet, but after a night of trembling, he broke into racking coughs and sweated the fever from his pores. Maester Luwin deemed him safe. Lyanna drifted to Aemon Targaryen's bedside next. The old maester's milky eyes stared ceilingwards. She clasped his frail hand. "Egg," he murmured, but his sightless gaze seemed to rest on her face and find what he sought. "Tell him. The song must be completed." She kissed his brow. At dawn he was gone. When Rhaegar heard, he climbed Icehelm Ridge alone. Dawnblade at hip, he knelt in crisp snow and strummed silent strings upon air. The wind carried his mute music into the endless white. Ned found him there after sunset, knelt too, no words. With the dead pushed back and new watchfires burning, the king at last ordered the host south. Ned remained to drill garrisons. Benjen accepted appointment as Night's Watch First Ranger. To succeed fallen Corgil. Rhaegar clasped his forearm. "A brother still," he said. Benjen managed to grin. "And you, still an overtall minstrel." Lyanna, Rhaegar, Arthur Dayne, and half the northern levies rode for the wall gate. Above, watchmen clanged bells as the queen passed. She halted, looked up. "Keep them ringing," she called. "Let the dark remember we are awake." The bells did not cease until their column vanished among the skeletal pines. Southward, they traveled under skies pregnant with spring. But peace was a mirage. Ravens met them at Mole's Town. Greyjoy reavers had butchered 2 villages in the Whispering Sound. Stannis' fleet foundered on Stepstone's reefs, losing 15 galleys. Blackheart Toyne celebrated with a feast of captives flayed for banners. Worse, word from King's Landing. Tyrell Frey alliance fraying after a brawl left 2 heirs dead. Markets rioting over rumor coin debased to pay for wars. Cersei struggled to stem unrest, aided only by Grand Maester Luwin and Samwell Rowan's purse. The royal party accelerated. Day and night they pushed, resting horses in relays. At Moat Cailin, Lyanna learned her daughter's wet nurse had vanished. The same night a hooded man bribed guards at the king's gate with Lannister gold. Her heart hammered until next Raven arrived. Lyra unharmed. Nurse found murdered in Flea Bottom, lips sewn with lion wire. Cersei launched inquiry, but progress slow. Lyanna tasted iron on tongue, spurred harder. When they reached White Harbor, Manderley ships awaited. Rhaegar boarded the galleon Grace of the Maiden. A carvel, so broad even Dane's charger fit in hold. While sails caught south wind, he stood aft deck with Lyanna. The sea glittered jade. "Our enemies multiply," she murmured. "Reavers in west, Sellswards in east, dead in north, daggers in beds." Rhaegar wrapped cloak around her. "So we answer in kind. Hope multiplies too." He pointed into waves where dolphins broke surface, leaping arcs. "You fight with voice. I fight with song. Together, they outweigh swords." Lyanna's laugh shook like a brittle thing but soon found strength. She leaned against him, watching the horizon burn rose under setting sun. Sea flies thickened near the neck marshes, nipping passengers. By the time they rounded Massey's hook, tidings improved. Stannis, though battered, had rallied. Tyrell shipwrights rushed new hulls. A brave OC envoy suggested mediation for debt reduction if pirate threat removed. Hope indeed multiplied. Yet as the Grace dropped anchor at the bustling harbor of King's Landing, a hush clamped the docks. No cheering crowds thronged. Word filtered. Small folk feared plague. Killing by the score in Flea Bottom. The nurse's death had been first sign. The city watch quarantined entire districts. Bread lines ran out. Tyrell grain ships still unloading burned 2 nights prior. Sabotage suspected. And in the Red Keep, Cersei barred herself with Joffrey, citing traitor plots. The royal procession pushed through uneasy streets. Blue lamplight flickered on shuttered stalls. The stench of sickness rode every breeze. At the gate of the gods, starving crowds parted only when direwolf banner advanced. Lyanna locked eyes with a girl whose lips were stained purple from fever. She tossed a silver stag. The girl caught it but did not smile. Inside the keep, council convened, but not all sat. Mace Tyrell knelt, hair singed. He confessed sabotage of his own ships by Reach rivals, an attempt to weaken Tyrell influence. Rhaegar fined him coastal tariffs and removed Brightwater Keep from his liege, awarding it to Sir Davos Seaworth for valor at Stepstones. Tyrell swallowed humiliation. Silent. Cersei arrived late, gold gown immaculate, eyes red-ringed. "Your city rots," Lyanna greeted. Cersei's lips twitched. "Your vermin bring disease from the north." Tywin, returned 2 days earlier, silenced them with clap on marble. Bickering seeds graves. Find cure. Luwin reported shivers, a mutation of pale mare plague. Heat, not cold, slowed it. Herbs from Dorne showed promise. Samwell Rowan volunteered coin to erect field hospitals. Cersei grudged approval but demanded city gates shut until plague passed. Tywin countered. Closure strangles trade. Rhaegar ruled. Partial quarantine. Sick isolated, ports screened, but grain must flow. That night, Lyanna inspected infirmaries. She walked rows of straw mats, kneeling by each child, pressing palm to brow. She ordered kitchens brew onion broth, the same that saved Storm's End, and personally ladled spoonfuls until dawn. When she rose, her gown was stained past salvage. The people saw, and hope flickered anew. Within a fortnight, cases peaked and ebbed. Mace sent barrels of citruses. Dornish healers distributed decoctions. Cersei privately thanked Lyanna, but warned her father's patients were thin, at constant deficits. Lyanna answered that hearts were coins impossible to counterfeit. Invest there, interest never failed. Cersei left without response. As spring flowered, envoys arrived from Stannis. Stepstones nearly pacified. Blackheart Toyne slain in duel. Golden Company splintering. Victory, yet Pike still restive. Greyjoy's sons plotting. Sea war dragged. From the east came stranger news. In the deserts of Lazar, merchant caravans swore they saw 3 creatures like winged serpents shading the moons. Their riders, robed in red, spoke Valyrian. Some speculated exiled Blackfyre scions. Rhaegar wondered if the dragon eggs lost at Summerhall still sang in shadow somewhere, waiting for a comet's kiss. One evening he took Harp to the Maidenvault Gardens, where almond blossoms drifted like snow. Lyanna found him weaving melody beneath violet dusk. She sat beside, drawing knees beneath cloak. "Will we ever see the end?" she asked. "All threats or this song?" He strummed a minor chord. "The song has no end, only verses. We add ours, trust those after to continue." Lyanna leaned head on his shoulder. "Then let ours be loud enough to echo." Stars wheeled overhead, and for one small moment, neither war nor prophecy intruded. Yet war returned by raven. Balon Greyjoy's heart gave out while drilling his reavers. On deathbed, he named Euron, his estranged brother, Lord Reaper. Euron's first edict: claim all seas from Arbor to the Neck. He sailed with a fleet of black ships decked in weeping maester cages. Stannis demanded reinforcement. Tywin protested more coin. Rhaegar sent men anyway. Euron struck not Stormlands but Old Town, unleashing mages who called lightning to shattered Hightower Beacon. Flames gutted Harbor District. The Citadel's library lost one tower. Archmaester Periston perished with scrolls on Long Night lore. When the smoke cleared, the reavers gone, walls painted with sigils. A dragon skull pierced by kraken tentacle. Outrage rippled. Houses who once sneered at Wolf Dragon Crown now begged for vengeance. Rhaegar summoned Great Council again. There he announced forging of new royal fleet, Queen's Fire, financed by joint loans from Hightower, Lannister, and Tyrell banks, commanded by Ser Davos Dott. Cersei balked at alliance with Onion Knight, but Tywin saw the merit. Gold that fought reavers saved ports. As hulls laid keels, Lyanna championed Project Closer. Shield walls of river stone and watchtowers, spaced along coasts, manned by veterans discharged after Northern Campaign. She called it the Light of the Watch. Lords grumbled at cost. She answered by selling half her jewelry, including necklace of rubies once worn at Harrenhal tourney. That story spread, and small folk began to donate coppers. Toddlers pressing coins into traveling sept boxes, labeled with a dire wolf and three-headed dragon etched side by side. Autumn came burning hot. Shivers gone. Grain in abundant. City markets bustled. Yet beneath clamor, another assassin crept. This one came not from Bolton dungeons but Lyseni poisoners paid by Braavosi magisters, angered at debt renegotiations. The contract: killed the queen and blamed the lion, thereby severing crown from Lannister gold. They struck during harvest ball. Candlelight dazzled ball gowns. Minstrels played sprightly jigs. Lyanna danced with Ned, twisting through steps once foreign now fluid. The assassins moved masked as harlequins, knives coated in basilisk blood. One feigned stumble, blade flicking toward her ribs. She pivoted, steel flashed on steel. Arthur Dayne intercepted mid-dance, his parrying dagger, no bigger than a quill. Barristan caught second killer by mask strings. Screams erupted. The poisoner foamed crimson, having pricked his tongue on hidden needle to avoid capture. The other broke free but not far. Margaery Tyrell tripped him with a deft swirl of skirts, sending him crashing into ale casks. He, too, bit death before confession. Tywin's face curdled. Cersei fainted belatedly, but no one missed her eyes tracking her father for judgment. Rhaegar thanked Dayne, inclined head to young Margaery. He ordered all trade with Lys suspended. Braavos envoys groaned. Behind closed doors he told Lyanna, "Daggers confess prison built of fear. We answer by opening gates wider still." She laid forehead to his. "Or by learning not to bleed." They laughed, brittle but honest. Winter closed again, third since Comet. Snow heavier than before banked against city walls. Fires roared, children skated on frozen dragon pit floor. The Night's Watch raven bore good word. No further large incursions. The dead seemed to wait, perhaps for deeper frost. Ned wrote that militiamen from Crownlands volunteered to man the towers. Hope again. Yet in dreams Rhaegar heard cracking ice, saw shadows move. He told Lyanna he feared the pause was but in hail. She placed Aemon on his lap. The boy now toddled, chasing kittens through corridors. "Look at him," she said. "Ice cracks, yes, but hearts mend." Rhaegar kissed son's brow, felt warmth that defied prophecy. One night, Rhaegar climbed to the Tower of the Hand alone. He strummed harp until strings snapped. In frustration he retrieved sword, practicing forms until sweat cooled. Mid-swing he froze. The blade, half-sheathed in moonlight, glowed dull scarlet. Not reflection, an inner light. The runes pulsed as at the lake. He touched them. They hummed. A thought pierced. Lightbringer's heat waxed with evil's nearness. The others stirred again. He convened secret council. Ned via Raven, Benjen by Shadowcat Courier, Samwell Tarly. Now steward at Old Town, by encrypted scroll. He proposed forging new dragonglass from obsidian islands of Skagos, rumored riddled with sorcery. Ned agreed to send ships, though islanders ate trespassers. Benjen offered wildling allies skilled in obsidian knapping. Tarly promised to scour broken library for lost passages. Lyanna, hearing, volunteered to sail to Skagos with Mormont women. Rhaegar refused, and for once she yielded, children needing her. Instead, she organized Southron Fund for Watch, sending bard troops to sing of northern sacrifice in squares across realm. Copper piled. Stannis meanwhile cornered Euron off the arbor. The battle raged 3 days, ending when Davos rammed the silence. Dragonhelm prow punching through hull. Euron vanished overboard amidst burning pitch. With him drowned Kraken threat, for now. Stannis limped home, but Stepstone's front quiet. Peace again. Yet not. From Ashai caravaneers brought rumor that red priests had anointed a silver-haired queen wielding living fire, dragons on each shoulder. Some said she named herself Daenerys, last Targaryen. Rhaegar heard. Heart stuttered. His sister dead? No longer. He felt joy pierced by fear. If she came west brandishing dragonflame, realm might split beneath weight of 2 rightful thrones. He played harp that eve, notes trembling. Lyanna read his unrest. Invite her, she proposed. Blood need not battle blood. Rhaegar tasked Varys with dispatching envoys. The spider smiled thinly, vanishing into lattice of whispers. Years wheel on. Aemon turned 4, Lyra 2, both strong. Wolves of Winterfell howled under brighter moons. South Harvest's tall, rebuilt Hightower relit guiding flame, now blue-tinted by new alchemist's glass. Queen's Firefleet patrolled straits, deterrent visible. Great Road North finished, cobbled ribbon from King's Landing to Last Hearth. Merchants praised Dragonwolf Rain as golden. Yet in last month of 5th year, snow across north failed to melt come spring. Rivers froze anew. Benjen wrote of stars swallowed by black auroras. Samwell Tarly unearthed scroll describing long night's second breath. Lightbringer glowed nightly now. Ned rode to King's Landing with grim tally. 5 of his men lost scouting Frostfangs. Hearts crystallized. Horn blasts thrice sounded one eve. They then stopped. The eternal enemy marched for real. War councils, burned candles, absent cease. Rhaegar resolved. Ride north again, all crowns risk. This time Lyanna would command southern realm. Children at side. Tywin and Doran advisors. Stannis defender of seas. She promised to keep throne warm, though tears rimmed eyes when they parted at Maidenvault. Common's ghost faint overhead. They embraced long, no words, only warrior heartbeats. The Northern Alliance massed. Arryn Eagles, Manderly Merlions, Reed Crannog spears, ex-wildlings under Tormund Giantsbane pledging blood. Even Lannister companies led by Dour Kevin humbled by prior debts. 12,000 strong marched once more through shattered leaves and frost that crackled like old parchment. Songs followed. The Singer King and the Howling Dawn. Queen of Ash and Snow. Lightbringer's Lullaby. Small folk lit lanterns in windows shaped as direwolves biting ice. Rhaegar rode at front, Lightbringer forging glow on snow. Ned at his right, Arthur Dayne at his left. Harp hung still on saddle, but no hand touched strings. War drums beat instead. As gates closed behind, Aemon from balcony cried out, "Father," in clear bright voice that carried through silent square. Rhaegar looked back once. raised sword in salute. People said the blade burned like a shard of sunrise. Beyond neck, the snows were deeper than memory. Frostwind howled, names none dared repeat. Yet men marched. At Queen's Crown they paused. Rhaegar climbed tower, surveyed, swept plains. In the distance, a glow like fitful dawn pulsed. Not sunrise but weird boreal fire. Armies of the dead carrying cold starlight within. He whispered the final line of the verse he had scratched hundreds of times. Song becomes sword, sword becomes dawn. The host pressed. Skagos obsidian wagons lagged. Wheels frozen. Tormund rallied giants to haul them. South of the Weeping Water they met first white scouts. Wolves, bears, owls wearing ice eyes. Arrows ended them, but each kill chilled morale. Fires burned brighter. At the wall, Benjen awaited, gaunt. The dead besieged the Shadow Tower nightly. He guided captains across the Bridge of Skulls, now reinforced with stone, and into Black Courtyard where torches guttered blue. There Rhaegar addressed them. "Tonight," he began, "we fight not for crowns, nor for songs, nor even for the living of today. We fight for the mornings our children have not yet dreamed, for hearths not yet built, for laughter not yet born. We carry fire because fire is memory, and memory is life." He unsheathed Lightbringer. The sword burst into red gold flame. "Remember," he said simply. Every man and woman knelt. That night, Wines died. Silence fell so thick, men heard their own blood. Then, drums, low, impossible, not human. The forest opened, and the long night walked out. Thousands, perhaps tens, ranks upon ranks of white shadows. Ahead rode a figure taller than the rest, armor night blue, crown of ice antlers. The Night's King reborn. He raised hand. The dead advanced. Horn blasts answered, 3, then 4, then a dozen, as new watchtowers lit beacon after beacon. Catapults flung jars of wildfire, mixing green with red blades glow. Giants waded into white hordes, clubs crushing brittle limbs. Obsidian grenades, Samwell's design, exploded shards through ranks, each shard a death. Still they came. Near midnight, the Night's King challenged. He strode forward. Spear of Starglass. Rhaegar dismounted, stepping through steam of his own blade. Dane moved to flank. Ned did too, but Rhaegar shook head. "Prophecy," he said again, and walked alone. The duel was soundless save hiss of snow under boot. Spear and sword rang like glaciers cracking. Each clash sent light showers. On the ramparts men watched breathless. Twice the spear grazed Rhaegar's mail, ice-spreading fractals that Lightbringer flashed away. Rhaegar feigned stumble, drew opponent close, then sang High Valyrian word taught by Master Aemon, Dracarys. Fire erupted along blade. He plunged it through the Night's King breast. Ice shattered outward in screaming halo. The dead collapsed as puppets freed from string. A gale of hot wind whooshed outward, melting top layer of snow for a league. Silence remained. When it broke, it was with roar that shook the wall. Men wept, laughed, dropped to knees. Rhaegar stood swaying as flame guttered. Ned reached him, steadied. Lightbringer blackened but whole. Aurora overhead dimmed. Sky revealing normal stars at last. Yet victory bore a price. Half the host dead or maimed, giants fallen, Benjen missing from last charge. They searched until dawn. Found him alive under white pile. Frostbitten but breathing. He smiled to hear enemy dust. Ravens soared south. In King's Landing bells erupted like thunder. Lyanna dropped to stare, sobbed relief. Tywin allowed himself exhale. Stannis at sea knelt on deck. Small folk lit lanterns again. Months later Rhaegar returned. Slower, beard streaked with white. At Kingsgate crowds hailed him Dawn Singer. He dismounted into Lyanna's arms. They walked to Godswood where children waited. Aemon ran first, brandishing toy sword carved from weirwood. He swung at father's knee. Rhaegar laughed for first time in year, scooped him, turned to Lyanna. "Verse finished," he said. She smiled. Then let's write the next. In following seasons, the world healed. The Night's Watch swelled with volunteers possessing pride instead of shame. Stepstone's pirates sued for peace after Davos blockaded every inlet. Euron's corpse never found. Sailors muttered he wed sea. Braavos, appeased by debt payment from seized Blackfire treasure stores, opened credit anew. And on distant dawn, 3 dragons landed on Dragonstone's ancient parapets, their rider dismounting with cloak of red stars. Rhaegar and Daenerys embraced beneath smoking wings. Realm held breath for war that never came. She bent knee to king, queen, and baby prince, pledging fire to guard north forevermore. At spring's heart a festival filled streets with colored banners. Blue for sky regained, green for fields reborn, white for peace, red for lives given, black for those mourned, gold for hopes ahead. Rhaegar played harp upon Dragonpit stage, joined by Lyanna on wolf-carved flute, their music weaving through incense-scented twilight. Small folk danced, lords forgot grudges, children chased floating lanterns shaped like comets. The song rolled on, verse to verse, but in that moment all choruses converged. A dragon's note, a wolf's howl, a child's laugh, a bell's ring, a harp's whisper. No prophecy spoke the next measure. It belonged to every heart still beating beneath shared sky. And should dark rise again, as dark always does, the realm would remember the night the Singer King and the Wolf Queen taught them that dawn is not gifted but forged. Note by note, blade by blade, hope by fragile hope, and kept bright by all who dare to lift their voices against silence.